Board of County Commissioners acts as a quasi-judicial body when it hears requests for rezoning and conditional use permits. Applicants must provide competent, substantial evidence establishing facts or expert witness opinion testimony showing that the request meets the zoning code and comprehensive plan criteria. Opponents must also testify as to facts or provide expert testimony whether they like or dislike a request is not competent evidence. The board must then decide whether the evidence demonstrates consistency and compatibility with the comprehensive plan and the existing rules in the zoning ordinance, property adjacent to the property to be rezoned, and the actual development of the surrounding area. The board cannot consider speculation, non-expert opinion testimony, or poll the audience by asking those in favor or opposed to stand up or raise their hands. If a commissioner has had communications regarding a rezoning or conditional use permit request before the board, the commissioner must disclose the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place before the board takes action on the request. Likewise, if a commissioner has made a site visit, inspection, or investigation, the commissioner must disclose that fact before the board takes action on the request. Each applicant is allowed a total of 15 minutes to present their request, unless time is extended by majority vote of the board. The applicant may reserve any portion of the 15 minutes for rebuttal. Other speakers are allowed 5 minutes to speak. Speakers may not pass their time to someone else in order to give that person more time to speak.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Thursday, May 5th Planning and Zoning Board meeting. And with that, I'll call this meeting to order. Commissioner Pritchett.
Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, minutes for approval. Can I get a motion for the February 3rd, 2022 zoning meeting minutes? Motion by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I don't have any resolutions, awards, or presentations, so moving on, no consent agenda items, and I have no public comment cards. So moving on to item H1.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I'm understanding from staff that the emails that usually you send for disclosures were not received by staff. So at this time, I know if you've had any ex-parte disclosures with any of the applicants regarding these applications, if you could just declare them at this time as best as you can. I understand there's emails, but apparently they have not been uploaded to the system. So we just
Okay.
need to be for the record.
I'll just start with this first one. There was an email from Ed Johnson that was up here. I've since given a copy to the clerk, and it's basically a letter of support after some modifications to the BDP were made, and they live in the neighborhood, and they just wanted to, I guess, inform us of that information. Commissioner Pritchett?
We also got one from Mr. Byrd, and I was just informed by my staff. They emailed that to the clerk for us. I had received a call from Mr. Oliver, and he just asked that we would really pay attention to District 2 items because he was in that area, and he wanted us to pay extra careful attention to that since they don't have a commissioner. That's all I've heard.
I got one from Ed Johnson also.
I believe all of the commission got that same copied email up here. Commissioner Tobias?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think we all got this one. I received an email on Wednesday, May 4th from Fritz Van Volkenberg in regards to items H1. No opposition. H2 suggests regarding the binding and development plan, and H6 no opposition.
Okay. All right, so applicant present? I have two cards for a Ryan Clark and a James Sai. You want to come on up? You'll have 15 minutes. You can come together if you choose. Since you're both the applicant, just state your name and address, or at least city and state for the record.
My name is Jim Sag. I'm a principal and the Chief Development Officer at Elmdale Partners, which owns Storsafe. Our address is 5301 Dempster, Suite 300 in Skokie, Illinois.
Good evening. Ryan Clark with Kimley Horn Associates, the civil engineer. Our address is 1115 East Twig Street, Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Thank you for hearing our petition. I think one of the reasons we prevailed unanimously at planning and zoning is because we came with our ears open and listened to our neighbors, entered into evidence a letter of support. Ed, I greatly appreciate that. I've been doing this for 25 years, and a letter of support from your neighbors is about as good as it gets in this business, so I really appreciate it. Underlying that support is that we immediately removed from our plan the notion of any outdoor parking whatsoever. So we will not have any outdoor buildings. We were thoughtful with Kimley Horn from the onset about using the rear of the site as an appropriate buffer from those beautiful homes along the Indian River. We think taking the ag parcel and the natural topography of the land and putting the storm detention where it is with a nice vegetative buffer really makes for an ideal buffer use from the highway. Our goal, as we said, and storage, having built one or two of these in my time, is really an ideal buffer use to residential, particularly with a highway. It's a low-intensity use. It is not used nearly as intensely as any other commercial use that I can think of. It doesn't require much in the way of operations, such as scavenger service. There is not a big amount of garbage that's created or trash pickup, so it's a pretty peaceful use. We tried as best we could to listen to all the very specific granular concerns they had, like lighting. And you'll see in the BDA that we agreed to things like having downlighting that lights the aisle as opposed to things that shines right at them is memorialized. We had some conversation back and forth with staff about the fence or the masonry barrier. Even in walking in here, I'm going to go ahead and agree to it as drafted and not ask for any relief from what's drafted. It's important to our neighbors. They made it clear it's important to them. It's probably the most sustainable thing. It's not going to get blown over like a vinyl fence would. So we're agreeable to everything as drafted. One way or the other, the portion of the site that we'd immediately like to develop is all BU1 now anyhow. And some version of this can be developed by right, but you're left with the problem of this bizarre patchwork of zoning that you have on this site that doesn't really make any sense. So a lot of this is cleaning up kind of what's a little bit of a mess. And, we felt BU2 made sense with conditions, and the Planning and Zoning Advisory Body resoundingly agreed, and I hope that you will too.
Okay,
Madam Chair, if I can just indulge you for a second, can I read these two items into the record?
sure.
Okay. Items H1 and H2 are companion applications. I will read them into the record together, but they will have to have a separate vote. So item H1 is Storsafe of Rockledge LLC requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, 21S.03, to change the future land use designation from Res 4, NC, and CC to all CC. Application number 21PZ00083. Located in District 2. Item H2 is Storsafe of Rockledge LLC requests a change of zoning classification from AU and BU1 to BU2. Application number 22Z0004, located in District 2. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval for both of these applications. With the rezoning application, it recommended a BDP with 8 conditions, and those are identified in the agenda report. Thank you.
Okay, does the commission have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Something I didn't ask you guys during our briefing. What kind of retention do we have for stormwater runoff? We have a swale or something there?
The item of drainage will be addressed at the site planning stage, where the engineers will get with staff and design an appropriate stormwater management system. Whether that is a wet retention pond in a swale, I don't know. That's beyond my expertise, but they will have to meet our land development regulations in our code.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith, if I may add to that.
Sure.
The code requires that they outfall into a legal positive outfall discharge area, so they won't be able to like put water on an adjacent property owner unless there's that legal positive outfall there.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one card. So we'll call you back up if we have additional questions or if you want to respond.
Super. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Ed Johnson?
Good afternoon, or maybe evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Ed Johnson. I live in 1945 Rockledge Drive, directly behind the old Harvey's Grove. I'm representing 8 of my neighbors, so there's eight residences. We're all abutted, bordering this property. And we went to the advisory board meeting, and there was a little bit of back and forth, but those guys did a wonderful job working out something for all of us. They have a 2-hour and 3-minute meeting. 55 minutes was spent on getting this worked out. And I'm here to say that myself and my 7 other neighbors, my wife and my 7 other neighbors, as long as the things that are in the BDP, the property will be used for self-storage only, outdoor storage prohibited, buildings will be limited to 1 story, lighting shall not face the residential properties, 20-foot landscape buffer. I think those last 2 are required anyway. And then a finished 8-foot masonry wall, which I talked to the applicant about earlier, and I believe he's agreed to not change that. So we're the way everything's written, we support it. And I guess I'm number 11, and I write programs for a living, so I don't know this stuff very well. The BDP it says shall inure to the benefit of successors or assignees. So the BDP goes with the property. It doesn't change with ownership. Right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, anybody have any questions for me?
No?
I'm good.
All right. Commission?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have, for the future land use change?
Yes.
Item 1. I have a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Okay.
second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item H2.
I'll make a motion to approve that as well,
Second with a little comment.
Okay, with the BDP?
with the BDP.
With the BDP from staff's comments?
Second with a comment. I'm
Yes.
just really glad you showed up and said that. I was really struggling with doing anything in District 2, and it's good to hear the neighbors are at a place where you're comfortable. That's really good. Thank you. I'm glad you're good with the BDP and everything. It was hard passing anything in District 2, so it's really good to hear that you guys are in a comfortable place.
Yeah, we are. There's a good neighborhood.
Thank you.
Good.
And thank you for working with the neighbors. We appreciate that. Doesn't ever usually go quite this smoothly, so we appreciate it. You should know, right? All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Smith to approve the zoning change with the BDP with the items listed in the staff report. I have a second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good luck. All right, item H3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rotation Holdings LLC requests an amendment to an existing BDP in a BU-2 zoning classification. Application number is 22Z0007, located in District 1.
Commissioner Pritchett.
I'm good, ma'am. I was going to make a motion to approve this.
I just have a card from the applicant, so unless the applicant wants to say anything. Your commissioner's good, so. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Seems so quick for all the work that you guys put in, doesn't it? Item H4.
Item H4 is Michael P. Bono and Charles Calhoun request to change zoning classification from GU to RR-1. Application number is 21Z00051, located in District 1.
Commissioner Pritchett.
Yes, ma'am. Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Tobias. I do have the applicant. If the applicant wants to speak, they can. If not, everybody's in agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. You're all set. Item H5.
Robert F. Ferrario and Jeremy Sothia Son request to change zoning classification from BU-1 and AU to all AU. Application number is 22Z0008, located in District 1.
Commissioner Pritchett.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Tobias. I do have the applicant card if they want to speak. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item H6.
Tyler M. and Christina N. Boucher request to change the zoning classification from AU to RR-1. Application number is 22Z0009, located in District 2.
All right. I have the applicant's card.
I make a motion to approve?
Okay, unless the applicant wants to speak, we have a motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Tobias. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All set. Boy, this meeting's going pretty good so far. Item H7 and
Thank you, Madam
H8.
Chair. Item H7 and H8 are companion applications. They will be read into the record, but you will need to have a separate vote for each of them. So item H7 is Rushing Wind LLC requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment 22S.02 to change the future land use designation from Res 1 to Res 4. Application number is 22PZ0003, located in District 3. Item H8 is Rushing Wind LLC requests to change the zoning classification from RR-1 and INL to RU-1-11. Application number is 22Z0001, located in District 3. Thank you.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to change future land use designation, Res 1 to Res 4, as listed in H7, Madam Chair.
Okay, I do have cards from the applicant. Does the applicant want to speak?
I had a question for you. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I was looking at this and the way the waters would flow down to basically Sebastian River and then out into the Indian River. Are you comfortable with the septic systems that would have to be in place in this particular instance with the density?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
And I'll tell you why I was comfortable with going from Res 1 to Res 4 is because the neighbors immediately to the north are Res 6. So they have adjacent neighbors that have a higher density than what they're currently asking for. So as a quasi-judicial body, I think that it's important that we offer some level of consistency, and they've actually gone for less than whatever a neighboring property is. So for that reason, I'm comfortable.
Okay. I was just a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they're
Okay.
going to have to be compliant with our ordinances and rules, so
Okay.
are you comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Did you second?
Second.
Oh, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item H8, Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to change zoning classification from R1 to INL and INL to RU111 as indicated in H7.
I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Second. Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All set. Can't do that. All right, I don't have any unfinished business or new business on the agenda. I have no public comment cards, so moving on to board reports. Mr. Abate?
No report.
Ms. Jornby?
Just a brief report. Our Tuesday meeting, the board had directed me to seek an attorney general opinion. I realized once we got out of the meeting, we did not actually take an affirmative vote, and the attorney general will require minutes from this meeting directing me to do so, so I just need to get a motion and a vote on that item to include in the packet, so I have the minutes.
Okay.
So move.
All right. Commissioner Smith makes the motion. Do you need it to be more specific?
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm seeking the correct information for the board. It just,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
yeah, quick question for Ms. Jordan B., if maybe she can answer it all together. Are you concerned there's any way we potentially may not get this back, an answer back?
well, the one thing, when I did review the Attorney General's website and the requirements, I have to do a certification. They basically say they will not answer questions for local codes or charters. They're supposed to apply state law to the local charter and the codes. So typically, they will not answer that. So it is a possibility they will decline to actually answer this Attorney General's request, because it is just, that's where I was going to seek. Basically, clarification would be, what does the term supermajority mean as far as our charter and our code? And typically, they don't answer if it's a local code. It's actually part of their packet online. It just essentially says they do not do typically interpretations of local codes, ordinances, or charters. And without really a state connection, that could be a problem.
So who would we ask in turn for that?
At that point, it would be me. I'm your legal counsel, so essentially, if they decline, it would be up to me to make that determination, which, I know we were seeking them, but there's really no entity. Typically, if we had an issue between another municipality, we could do a declaratory action, but we don't have anything where we could take that to court. So the avenue would be Attorney General opinion. My understanding, they most likely will decline it, but, it's because it doesn't involve a state issue.
So question would be, so what if we interpret it in a way that's not the same as maybe how it's written or whatever, who would we get to? Let's say we were doing something, and let's say maybe it's what we should not be doing. If we don't go to the Attorney General, who's ever going to say what we're doing is not correct with how we interpreted it?
If the board took action that, it would be up to an individual public member. So if for some reason we took a vote and it was, individual disagrees with what the board has done, they could file a lawsuit. And that would be up to a court to decide whether we followed our code or charter, or whether the interpretation we took was reasonable under those definitions.
So, but what if we already moved forward and we?
And that's the issue. So, they could jeopardize the results. So for some reason, like a couple of the issues, that one was, putting something on a referendum for a charter amendment. If the board took a different position and said, 3 members was a supermajority, so we can do this, and it went to a referendum, if someone challenged that, a court could reverse the referendum, and you would have to redo the
But doesn't our
referendum.
charter clearly state 4 members? It says 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just giving an example
Right.
of what,
I think my
individual could
concern
do.
was more of what's considered a supermajority when we have a vacancy.
And so, I think the one provision, I'm thinking of is like the charter cap. That says supermajority of the board. So I think a reasonable interpretation would you start with what the definition of the board is, and it's a 5-member board. Even with a vacancy, at that point, it doesn't change the fact that the board is a composition of 5 members, and so a supermajority would still be 4.
What about?
The board isn't 5 members when there's not
I think
a
you could
5th
argue
member.
that the supermajority then is the remaining board. So if you have 4 members, then 3 is a supermajority.
Because what, like if we only have 3 members and we get 2 votes, that'll be a supermajority at that time too.
It's my position that, just looking at there's a very limited case law on this issue, by the way, so I have been looking. We did find one statute that doesn't apply to anything that we would be doing, it's to special districts. The state of Florida, the legislature has defined supermajority is, half plus 1. So at that point, you're majority plus 1. So majority, by definition, is over 50%.
The
So-
majority plus 1, we don't have an odd number of members, so that probably wouldn't apply to us.
That's in Florida statutes.
That was just one section, but it's about taxes. It's not even really relevant.
Yeah,
It's
'cause
just
when
trying to find examples
I
of
did
how.
research on supermajority. I found some 66%. And so let me ask you this, Ms. Jordan B. Well, what if we went ahead and we got just another person's opinion that did this, so we just would have 2 opinions moving forward on it? Would that?
Or another
Yes,
expert legal opinion, just.
So then we'd have something
If
showing we
anything,
did due
it's going to validate,
diligence.
your position on it, and it's going to at least give the board some security that we're acting appropriately and properly.
I think at that point, you would have a difficulty because you are insulated by qualified immunity as long as you're following your legal counsel's advice. I think at some point, when you have, an additional counsel, I think at that point, I guess you would have to enter into a contract with that attorney and actually hire them. I'd have to look at our charter as far as how often you can, how we go through that process. At that point, you have counsel, so you have to be cognizant of that.
And I think it's really important, we're absolutely 100% certain that we're doing it right.
Well, I think we talked, I have been down this road with a separate town in my past
But
where.
it was a little different. I believe the circumstances were slightly different, correct?
Well, it was 5-member board, only 4 were able to appear for a meeting where a supermajority vote needed to be taken for their budget item. And at that time, it was a 3-1 vote. We moved it forward. The Department of Revenue actually kicked it back and said that was not, they did not recognize that as a supermajority vote. So we actually had to redo our budget hearing in October. So it was just kind of a painful experience for attorneys to remember to be doing something so out of sync. So that's that's my personal experience that I
Did you
bring
have an
forward.
absent member or a vacancy?
It was an absent member.
See,
See, I
we have
s-
a vacancy. We don't have somebody that's on the board. We have somebody that,
So
there's nobody in that. There
I
is no
interpret
elected
that.
official in that
I interpret
position.
that the same way you do.
So it is, to me, a little bit different than somebody who
think
just
so,
doesn't
too.
come to a meeting because
I-
he holds that seat.
And I have not found anything that's specifically about vacancies.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with you guys, but I would like to introduce another thought, which comes from our former clerk of court, who is fond of saying, if you want 3 opinions, ask 3 attorneys. So getting one more attorney to give us an opinion, or 2 more, if you got 3 opinions, then maybe 2 of them would be the same, but you could get 2 attorneys and both give you opposite viewpoints, so then where are you?
I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Well,
That's
I
all.
know, so I think what she's saying is that we're going to have to make a decision on our own and then either accept or reject what she recommends.
Okay, that sounds like a reasonable thing, because that's what we do. We do our best to do what we can as the best, and it's her job to find a way to defend it or let us know if we've really done something. So as right now, I think there's an interpretation that could go both ways.
Okay.
Yes, no? What's
Sure.
y'all's thoughts?
I don't feel comfortable with any of it. I mean,
Don't
I don't know
either.
that there's a way to get,
Unless, I don't,
rectify it.
this is a new experience for me. I don't know if you go back to opinions of other attorneys that have sat in this position, and maybe you guys can get a consensus together. That might be a little bit more, at least you have a consensus of everybody in agreement. That might help a lot. I don't know
Well, I
how to do
think-
all that, though.
I'll facilitate whatever you want to do. I just, at this point, to actually hire another attorney, I would have to, I think there might be a provision in our charter. I'd have to look into that to see how we would do that if you
maybe
wanted to
just
get a
keep-
separate opinion.
Or put somebody on some more research to see if you can find something that's a little more, gives me at least a little more comfort on not just somebody who doesn't come to a meeting, but somebody that, when the seat is vacant. I think
Right.
that's the prime difference between,
And I think you make a good point with that. It's not of someone's choosing that they're not here. It's, we're working with what we have, which is a deficit. We have no choice. So
if Governor
if we're-
DeSantis would appoint, we wouldn't even be
Right.
having this discussion.
But if we are in a position where we have to make a decision that requires a supermajority, the way I would look at it, I don't know what my fellow board members would say, but a supermajority of 4 is 3.
It shouldn't be unanimous. That's too hard to ever get unanimous.
Especially with Commissioner Tobias.
Well, the minorities rule, too. so-
Come on. I got to harass you a little bit.
But, yeah, and that's a point. It doesn't say anywhere that it has to be a unanimous decision. It says it has to be a supermajority. So in our case, since we don't have a 5th member, to get 4 has to be unanimous. Well, that isn't in any statement. It says supermajority. So supermajority with 4 members as
Well,
opposed to 5
if-
becomes 3.
If I may, just a brief research we've done, we do define what a majority of the commissioners is we define it as the 3. So, to me, that's a majority, so a supermajority has to be more than a simple majority. So I think that's where I'm looking at it from. And I know we're talking about a vacancy. We have not found anything in reference to vacancies at this point. We can keep looking.
I would say, I'm sure it's happening.
Could we reach out to the Attorney General?
I did speak to the Attorney General briefly on it, just about what I needed to make sure to submit to the packet. But they won't give anything official unless we submit
So
something
we're
official.
on our own.
I mean, at that point.
Maybe reach out to other counties, see if they've been in this predicament and see what they found. if
I
they had
know
more
that
time.
Osceola County has, I believe pretty recently. I can reach out to them. I believe actually one of my attorneys in my office might have done some research on that as well, but I don't know, I can't recall how that occurred. I don't know what kind of vacancy that was.
I guess anything additional you can find out, just to make sure exactly that we're doing exactly the right thing.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I try to stay out of these issues that are steeped in legal opinions, as I haven't attended one day in law school. So I defer to the county attorney on this one and go from there. If we decide to send this up to the Attorney General, I'm more than willing to do that. I think our county attorney has been pretty clear that we may get no answer back. I just want us to be prepared for that.
Well, that's the first I've heard of it, like is in this public meeting. No one's told me that information until you asked the question, so.
No, I
I mean,
didn't,
that does change
I didn't know
things.
that. I just asked,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to make sure that there was, not only the time frame. No, she got that. I didn't. I just
Right.
totally wanted to make sure.
Well, if they're not going to answer the question, it seems like a wasted effort, doesn't it?
Which boggles my mind that they wouldn't, because that puts us on the hot seat. And all we're looking for is some direction. And to me, it should be a simple answer. Otherwise, we're left to make the decision.
Or it'd be nice if there was some, either case law or.
There's got to be
precedent.
case law somewhere.
You would think, but, well,
There's limited case law. There was one particular case that I have is essentially, it was an old case from the 50s. It involved a statute that actually involved zoning where they required 3/4 of a vote by the board. And I guess the attorney of record at the time took it to be the members present. And the case law was, no, it has to be 3/4 of the board present, of the actual board as it was constituted. So, I mean, that was the one case, but I mean, once again, that's an old statute that's been long overturned, and they're just not clearly on point, but it
That was
is,
somebody missing again and not just 4-member board at that time, right?
I don't recall, to be honest, if it was a vacancy, if they even indicated, they just said there were 4 members present instead of the 5, and then they didn't have the full 3/4 vote.
And that I could understand, because there's somebody that's filling that seat. Like, there's an elected person that's fulfilling that role. But when it's vacant, there's no choice in the matter. So I guess just keep digging. I wouldn't recommend you ask for an Attorney General's opinion if you don't believe that they're going to give us a response.
It's, they wouldn't say one way or the other, but it was indicated, that it could be considered totally a local issue, and they really want to see something addressed with a state statute or some, statewide issue is really what their purview is under their state authority.
Okay.
punt. Punt.
Well, I mean, there's not much we can do. Commissioner Pritchett? Commissioner Toya?
I'll vote either.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes, I just wanted to report, and Ian, do you want to fill us in on the lady that was here the other night, Ms. Barbara Perry?
Sorry, can I go back? I thought that was a question on that comment.
Oh.
No, sorry, I apologize.
Pay attention.
Sorry.
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, we've had contact with Ms. Perry, and she submitted an application for a rental assistance program. She has been assisted. As of about an hour ago, we've gotten her into, through the program funds, into a hotel. We'll cover her for approximately the next month while she works through trying to get disability.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for doing that for her. She really seemed to be somebody that was desperate for an answer and a good person, and she's just caught in a vice, kind of, and so you came to her rescue. And I want to point out that there was a big brouhaha, I guess, you could call it that, with the Brevard Justice Ministry Monday night. The article wanted to throw us under the bus because we each had different reasons for not being there. I want to point out in public that I made Ian available to them if they wanted answers, because I will go on the record as telling you, when they asked for low-income housing information. What I know about low-income housing, you could put in a thimble, and you probably have some room left over for the Miami Dolphins. I knew nothing, so had I been available, I might have gone, but I wouldn't have been of any use to them, because I would have had no knowledge. Ian had all the answers. They weren't interested in answers. It seems to me, in hindsight, they were looking to point fingers. And I don't know if we have the media here, but that's a stark report on my part, because I was annoyed. I was annoyed.
Yeah, same with me, because I had already agreed to meet with those folks in my office weeks earlier. We scheduled the appointment. They're meeting with Jordan Chandler, who's my charter appointee, who's putting forth a workforce housing initiative. I mean, but instead of working with the office, or instead of, they took the opportunity to say nobody came. Well, some of us have to work. Some of us have 3 kids in college. We want to make sure that we're paying our bills as well, just like them, and we can't go to everything, but it doesn't mean we don't care.
Right.
And that wasn't fair at all.
It's annoying.
Yeah, can I-
If I didn't care about workforce or low-income housing, I would have canceled the meeting, because I would have felt, but honestly, at the end of the day, if we can do something, I mean, like I
Sure.
said, we've been working on it for months, but I guess they weren't interested in that.
I want to throw in also, I work at a church, and our church does outreaches too, and I thought when you have these churches come together, it's wonderful, and they should. And something our church did is we bought an apartment complex, so we are responsible for housing groups of people, and if these churches want to help, that might be something they can do, apply funds and be directly housing people. But this group, from the emails and responses I saw, it became a very big political thing. And if people pick up projects, I hope they run with them and do well. But I personally don't want to pick up everybody's projects. I got enough of my own. Unless they want to come up and start helping me with some of my projects, that would be good as well. But the overall goal is to help people and get them in homes. But, you start getting political and you start doing all of this mess, nobody's going to get any help. And it just was so inappropriate. And
It's
so-
inappropriate, because the person that kind of went on the attack has never once asked for a meeting in my
Yeah,
office.
and if they want to talk
Or a
to
phone
us
call.
and they want the 5 of us, show up. Here we are at a meeting.
Never wants to talk about
Yeah,
ideas, doesn't
yeah.
want to have a sit-down discussion.
So-
And it's sad when there's members of the other political party that are afraid to talk to you, because they'll get chastised by the so-called leaders for working with Republicans. So, again, we'll get the work done in spite of it, and in spite of, the misinformation that's out there, and we'll prove to them that we can still get it done.
Well, we'll keep doing it, but if churches want to do it, it's a really good idea. It's what our church did. It doesn't take a whole lot of funds, just buy an apartment complex that's empty and house people. And that's what they can do, and it's a good thing to do. Unless they want to bring us all their money, then, we'll find places to put it. I'd be glad to help with that administrative act, too, so.
And on a more positive note, I have called Ian after work hours, and he has been helpful to me
Ian's
in
wonderful.
different personal situations with people that have come into my life, either through my other job or just, members of the public, and I appreciate you. And I hope
Ian
you know
will
that. I hope I say thank you enough, because I do. I appreciate you.
I think we all appreciate it.
Yeah.
He goes above and beyond.
He always
and
picks up the phone.
He's a real asset to the community.
Yeah.
All right, that's my board report.
Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm the only idiot, I think, that met with these folks. I met with these folks twice for an hour and a half. And if they recognized the problem, which you don't get any credit for. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, none of us are denying this. So I tasked them with looking at our budget. I gave them a copy of their budget, of our budget six weeks ago, and I said, please identify things in our budget that you prioritize less than affordable housing, because I don't think we're going to pass a tax increase. So tell me this is how when I come to the board, I explain to them, hey, I'm very interested in paying employees more money, but I don't say, hey, let's pay employees more money. I say, here is a way in order to do that. We don't have to borrow it, but I don't want to say just flat out raising taxes. You're more than welcome to do that, but at least come to us and say, hey, I want to raise taxes, and this is where they want to go. And they said, no, we want to do that. So I tasked them with doing that. And they came back 4 weeks or 5 weeks later to my office, and I was ready for, hey, here is how we're going to find that $10 million. And they had a plan, and their plan was that we need to find a staff member, and we need the staff member to go through our budget and and do that. And I said, this was the work product you had in 6 weeks? And I was absolutely disgusted with their lack of, they claim to have empathy, but they don't want to work. And it's absolutely disgusting that then they get to this meeting and they claim that we don't show up. It's very easy to show up. What's hard is to work, and they just didn't want to work. So my office is open, but they have to do one of two things. Either say you want a tax increase, which is, nothing's wrong with that, I'm not going to vote for it, but at least be honest. Or B, say, hey, listen, parks are not that important. Sorry, Mary Ellen. But we're going to cut the parks budget in order to, because, we'll have folks come up here and say parks are more important. All of us, I think, agree that low-income housing is very important. We have an influx, as we mentioned before, of more than $20 million that we can help right now. Let me say that again, more than $20 million that we can help right now for housing. Yes, we're not going to buy you a house, but we have no control over the market, and there's nothing we can do with that. So I'll task them or anyone else. Please go through our budget. It's online. I'll be more than willing, any of us will be more than willing to send you a copy. And please come to us and tell us not only low-income housing, anything, what you think is more important, what you prioritize more. It may not be our priority, but at least you come to us prepared and you make a suggestion, and I think any of us will listen. What we'll not listen to is, oh, get staff to do that, because quite frankly, that's not staff's job. It's our job as policymakers to make those decisions. If it's a priority to you, then you go through the work, you do it. But I'm the only idiot, again, up here. You guys are all smarter than me, that wasted an hour and a half of time. I think the best part of that hour and a half was the 4 minutes that we prayed. But everything else was, unfortunately, an absolute waste of time. So good for you guys for making a better decision than what I did, not only once, but twice. But I was absolutely disgusted that they got up there and said, we didn't care and we didn't show up. The reality is they didn't show up. And again, my office is always open if you come in with a plan. I actually told you what you needed to do, and you just neglected to do it. So shame on you. If you want to run to the paper instead of doing the work, you're more than willing to do that. But I'll tell you what, you're not going to get much sympathy from folks up here on the board. Good luck, but sorry. Anyway, a couple things real quickly here, two things real quickly, and then one that may be a little bit longer. This was dealing with the North Brevard Public Library Advisory Board. Wait a second here before you guys get, and the South Central Brevard Public Library Board. These are both the ones that Commissioner Pritchett and D1 asked us to increase the membership from 10 to 12. I made a mistake. I didn't say where those extra 2 were coming from. So I'm going to make 2 motions up here to say that those 2 extra individuals go to District 1. We said 12, we just didn't say where those 2 extra. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution dealing with North Brevard Public Library Advisory Board. When we said from 10 to 12, those extra 2 are assigned to District 1. Again, there's no changes other than saying the extra 2 go to District 1. So that's the motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thanks. Same thing for the South Central Brevard Public Library Advisory Board. Amend the resolution that went from 10 to 12 to say the extra 2, once again, go to District 1. That's the motion, Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Tavaya.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And finally, and I'm not going to ask for a motion here, but Commissioner Pritchett brought up some very worthy issues when it came to a extra board. So I have a couple options here. So when we get to, I'm not asking for anything, but we did a little work in our office to provide some options as we move forward. So our next meeting will go a little bit more smoothly. And it would not be a meeting if I didn't have any handouts. So I do have some handouts here with option number 1. I'll be quick with this. Option number 1 expands the number of seats from the 10 to 18. The reason I chose 18 is this takes everyone that is currently on the board and allows them to transfer directly over to that new board. So no one is left out whatsoever. So that's option number 1. You can see here the distribution of seats. Now, let me give you one more, or actually 2 more options here, because what your argument for that one is going to be is those new, those members on the board that you mentioned, the Cocoa West Recreation Board, while they have a majority of votes on that one, that would be diluted when it came to the larger board. So here is option number 2. Now, option number 2 says, with anything dealing with specifically the Cocoa West Recreational Complex, it requires all 5 board members to come together, and if they vote unanimously, then it does not matter how the rest of the board votes. So in other words, as you see in this one, if 1 through 5 say they want X, and all the remaining 13 say they want something different, it doesn't matter. That board would get their way. So we do not dilute any of the members. And I even went to number 3 because as we're having issues hitting that unanimous mark, I've spent a little bit of time. And here is option number 3. Option number 3 is you don't even need unanimous support, that any 3 of those members, I just chose the top 3, I have no idea about any of these folks, would have the ability to enact any sort of change. What this would do would not dilute the votes and certainly would, in fact, for the Cocoa West Recreational Complex Advisory Board, it would actually empower them to have more votes when it came to things dealing with not only their individual complex, but those of the District 2 Merritt Island South Beaches, as well as the Parks and Rec South Area Advisory Board. Again, I'm not looking for any motion. I'm just throwing out some options here that would consolidate all these boards, but leaves voting autonomy for those groups.
So in other words, with District 2, if it was their issue, they would need 4 votes, and it wouldn't matter what the other 2 entities voted. Is that correct?
Madam Chair? No, this is only deals, Commissioner Pritchett was very concerned, rightfully so, with the Cocoa West Recreational Complex Board. So when it comes to issues pertaining just to the Cocoa West Recreational Complex Board, they would vote, and everyone would vote. But if they got any 3 of the 5, it would not matter how everyone else voted. The thought is, if we threw everyone together, all 18 votes together, they could vote unanimously and lose, because there would be. So I don't want to dilute their vote, but I wanted to make sure that we consolidated this, saving resources.
But wouldn't that same reasoning go into District 2 and/or Parks and Recreation South Area?
I am more than willing. Listen, I am more than willing to do that.
I like your thought pattern, and I'm just saying, why don't we just use that for all 3 groups then?
Madam Chair? Listen, I wish I'd have thought about this before, because I would have used that same logic and created one Parks and Rec board and say, hey, listen, they're going to meet 12 times a year here at this office, and basically like the United Nations, right? You've got a council that has the ability to veto anything, right? And done it that way. The problem is this issue didn't come up until Commissioner Pritchett mentioned it, and I took it to heart because I think it's very valid. I was just trying to find a way to meet the needs that she enumerated, as well as fit the goals by having a single consolidated board. I think any one of these three do it, but they're just options, and they're what I could come up with in the last 48 hours. Again, I'm not asking for a vote. I just want to throw out options, so when we discuss this, maybe you have better ones, but I'm willing to work with any of these three. I'm willing to work with other things as well. This is just a starting point. And again, because of sunshine, we can't discuss this. It has to be at a public meeting. So, Madam Chair, I thank you for your time on this issue.
Okay, and I have nothing. So with that, meeting's adjourned.
Everybody have.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.